Hello, my name is Julio Diaz. Welcome to Guitar Memories. Today, I have the pleasure to introduce you an amazing guitarist, solo artist. I'm on Granbury, Texas, and I want to introduce you, Jarrod Butler.
Thank you.
How's it going, Jarrod?
It is going wonderfully. You picked a good day to show up. So, fresh off of a show, so I'm still on that energy going right now.
Okay, can you talk a little bit about yourself, please?
Again, my name's Jarrod. 42 years old, and I've been playing guitar since I was about 15. And married, have 3 kids. Love the church I go to. Just got a very full, very happy life. Goats, ducks, chickens, all kinds of stuff.
Oh, I love work. well, Jared, thank you so much for accept this invitation for Guitar Memories, and well, start with the beginning. How you start to play guitar?
Well, I didn't always live in Texas. I grew up here, but around when I was 8 years old, my mom and my stepdad had us all move out to the Carolinas. And my stepdad had an uncle that owned a music store in South Carolina called Fourth Chord Music. And they would go to hang out with his aunt and uncle, and they allowed me to just have complete reign of the store. I mean, it'd be closed, and I'd be able to just walk around an entire music store, and I could pick up anything I wanted, play anything I wanted. So I would just pick up whatever interested me and pick at it and see what happened. And it didn't really, I was not good at it, didn't know what I was doing, but it felt right. It just felt really, it felt right. Fast forward a few years, we moved back to Texas. I never really did anything with it there. We moved back to Texas, and that memory is still going through my head. And I wanted to pick up another guitar. So it lived in North Richland Hills at this time, around 13 to 15 years old is when this is. Like, memory's a little blurry on the age. But I ended up picking up a cheap guitar at a pawn shop for like $100. And this is the early 90s, somewhere around there. And I was hooked from that point. I started playing it all the time. I wasn't good at it and didn't really have any teachers. So I was just strumming it with my thumb, and I was fretting with my thumb.
Oh.
I wasn't even using my fingers. All I could do was fret with my thumb. So I was learning like Smoke on the Water and Ghost Riders in the Sky and stuff just using my thumb. And, I still actually have that guitar, and there's some stories that go with that guitar. Because I'm not, as I've grown into the guitar player I am now, I don't have the same gear addiction, I guess you could say, that a lot of guitar players have, where I don't collect numbers. I don't collect amounts of guitars. I find guitars that I like or that have memories attached to them, and then I just keep them. So at this point, anyway, that's getting into now. But starting off, it was just that acoustic guitar, and eventually I would go hang out at a music store in the area. Oh man, I can't remember the name of the place. It was off of Roof Snow in the 90s, off of Roof Snow and Watauga Boulevard. I'm sure people around there that are from here will remember what that place is. But I would go there all the time. They'd let me play their guitars, and the lady there would just get on to me because I was playing with my thumb. And so all the time, and I was like, it's all I know how to do. And she's like, well, then get better. And she wasn't doing it to be mean. She just had a stern personality, but she was just trying to help me. And eventually that stuck. And as I started to actually get guitars, I would eventually learn how to play with a pick and how to play with my fingers instead of just my thumb. My first electric, I could not tell you what it was called because it was some cheap knockoff cherry red guitar that my cousin gave me that was electric. And I just thought that was amazing. And around that time, I started getting into metal at the same time. So that all really converged to where, getting into metal and playing guitar. But I had a friend that was willing to teach me how to read tablature. And, he would take me to church with him, and he was really into the Christian punk scene. So he had a really big fan of a band called MXPX at the time. It's like Christian punk, essentially. And so he would teach me all that kind of stuff. Turns out that was great stuff to learn on because punk's power chords and like 2 to 4 of them, and that's your whole song. But he taught me my first power chord, and you know how it is when you pick up a guitar, somebody teaches you a power chord, then you're off to the races. Like, I can play everything now. But eventually, I never really joined bands as a guitar player. I kept that up and then also learned bass. I can't even remember how or when I learned bass. I think it's because somebody gave one to me. So I just happened to learn it. I never joined a band early on in my teenage and early 20 years on guitar. I was honestly too nervous. I didn't think I was good enough. I'd started to listen to things like Injustice for All from Metallica, and I was like, that sounds like what I'd like to play, and I am not good enough to play that. So
Again, and Justice for All. I think it's the album changed a lot lives.
it did.
Yeah, but because Lou Morris and uh, Ronnie, he said during the podcast, 3 people, and you're the 4th.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Said, and Justice for All.
There's just something special about those riffs.
Mm-hmm.
And it probably something about being able to hear the guitar so clear with no bass involved. but there's just something special about how those riffs came together and just how powerful and angry, and you could hear the picking. Mm-hmm. And it was just so specific. And the timeline of when I'm hearing this is like, this is the era when like nu metal started coming about. So if you're getting into metal, you're getting introduced at the time to things like Marilyn Manson and Slipknot, all the way to like Deftones and System of a Down, and that all sounded neat and all, but there was something special about Injustice for All, about the heaviness of it, the clarity of it, and the picking styles that were happening. It was thrash, but it was heavier. I don't know. The structure was cool. The song structures were cool. There was clean guitar in there still. So it was when I really decided I didn't want to just play acoustic. I wanted to play electric, but I didn't really think I could. I started playing bass after that and joined bands in bass like most people do. Is I play guitar, but there's too many guitar players, but nobody plays bass and people need bass players. Mm-hmm. So I played bass. Yeah. So really, it's funny how many years I played in bands but didn't play guitar. Mm-hmm. The first band I ever played guitar in, honestly, I think it was the Funeral Procession. Mm-hmm. And this is 2008, 2010 at this point. And yeah, that'd be the first band I actually played guitar in. Yeah. Interesting to think about that and really like kind of have that realization now. You know, fast forwarding to now, Funeral Procession coming out again in the iteration it's in. I also joined that as it first started. And Nicole and I were talking about that, how like neither of us had really played a lot of shows up at that point as we started playing shows in this new wave of Funeral Procession as guitar players. Mm-hmm. Nicole had played his bass. I've been a vocalist for a lot of bands, been bass and vocals for bands, but I had never played guitar until the mid 2000s of Funeral Procession. Mm-hmm. We played like 3 shows, and that was like the extent of my guitar playing. So rewinding to before what brought up to that, my influences that I started to pick up outside of Injustice for All. That's what started it. Yeah. But I couldn't do anything with it. As I played bass, I played with a pick, and it started that picking and the precise picking always stuck with me. Mm-hmm. And there was something special about that. And so you learn about the down picking of James Hetfield, and you start to learn how much different it sounds to just down pick than it does to alternate pick. Uh-huh. And they both have their place, but there was something so percussive about constant down picking. And then I started hearing a band called Iced Earth, mm-hmm. and the guitar player John Schaefer, mm-hmm. from that. And it's funny how, I shouldn't admit this, but here's how I heard that for the first time. There was a whole wave of bands that I found at the same time that changed everything, and 2 of the bands that were on this story are what became my 2 main influences for guitar. So back in the day, there was a magazine called Brave Words and Bloody Knuckles. I believe that's what it's called. And they always, in the back of it, had a sampler CD of just compilation of all the different metal bands that would come out. So I've got better, but at the time I would go steal those from the back of the magazines in Barnes and Nobles and then take them and listen to the music. I don't suggest that, but it's what happened, so here we are. And on one sampler CD, there was, God, that looking back, I'm realizing this as we're talking, how much that sampler CD developed my taste in music, because it had The Hunter by Iced Earth on it. And that was the first time I'd heard anything like that. It was, to me at the time, it was like hearing Iron Maiden, but way more metal and much better riffs, heavier riffs. I don't want to say much better, but just heavier riffs. And another band that was on there, and I can't believe I can remember these songs. The River Dragon Has Come by Nevermore, the guitar player Jeff Loomis. And these two guys, John Schaefer and Jeff Loomis, later really started to develop, I want to say my style, but that's who I looked to initially. You always have that person you initially look to that you emulate, and you're like, how do I do that? How do I learn this? Those were the two. And Jeff Loomis, not for his lead playing, but for his rhythm playing. I realized early on that I just wasn't gifted at lead playing. I eventually developed the ability to do it, but not at the levels of guys like Gary Cox in America Inc. or Charles Benson, and Benson, Exalt the Throne, all that. I'm not that level. I can carry leads, but I can't be a soloist. But I had a real passion for rhythm, just the rhythm section, because I was like, that's the guy that has to play everything. It's kind of like bass plus. It carries the band, it carries the song. You need that rhythm section to be strong and precise. So when I heard Iced Earth and I heard the triplets and the gallops happening on the guitar, it was the first time I had heard anything like that. So I became absolutely hooked. And I started learning by ear all the Iced Earth albums, which at this time, this is even before Horror Show had come out, to give you a timeline for those that know who Iced Earth are. So I started just taking their albums one by one and finding what I knew was an open note and tuning my guitar to it by ear as it's playing. And then I would just play along to the songs and slowly develop basically John Schaefer's style, and realizing how tight you had to be with your pick. And, coming from a guy who used no pick in his thumb, like starting to go into actually learning tight techniques and making myself sit down and do that was very different. And timeline wise too, there wasn't a lot of internet available. It was mostly guitar magazines and things like that. I couldn't just go onto YouTube. YouTube didn't exist. Yeah. At this point, Google didn't even exist, I don't think. Because it was like AOL and maybe Ask Jeeves.
Because Google is from 2007.
Yeah, so learning all this stuff is before any of that. I didn't even get my first computer with internet, and it was dial-up internet until I was like 17 years old. So this is when I'm developing all these skills. That all kind of happened at the same time. But yeah, there weren't resources online to learn this stuff. So I just had to sit in my room and listen to the albums and just try to mess with my guitar and figure out what was happening. And I would slowly figure it out and then realize that down-picking style of James Hetfield was really how I could capture the Iced Earth style, but you could still catch things on the up pick of that. And so if you kept it as tight down as you did up, and instead of like flopping my hand around, I just start developing like closing my fingers and getting in tight and learning how to really twitch your hand and do that cleanly without hitting too many strings. So learning how to get weird picking patterns and all that. A metal guitar player learning how to do that not from Meshuggah. Because I'll say something blasphemous to the metal community, but I never got into Meshuggah. I find it boring. I recognize them for the technique they are. And when people hear me, they think that I've developed stuff from that. But no, I never cared for Meshuggah. Love them, love what they've done for the scene, love how great they are. They are very talented. They just had no effect on me.
Yeah, for sure. I think the music is about that, about about the colors. You like some colors, you like, but you respect the another projects. Well, on my podcast, I said so many times, I respect AC/DC, I respect Megadeth, but don't connect with me.
Right.
I love Megadeth riffs, but I don't connect with the voice.
Right.
But they must think he's amazing musician. He's crazy. He's crazy. He's amazing. the ideas he has and the technique he has on his hands are amazing. And but I really don't connect with
Yep.
his music. But yeah, it's totally you just said okay. I respect them, but don't connect with.
Look, I get it, y'all.
It's
Just
not
not
for me. It's not for me. Yeah, for
Yep,
sure.
that's awesome. Funny, the first metal album I ever heard, my stepbrother showed me, and it was Peace Sells, but Who's Buying by Megadeth.
Oh.
That was like part of the start of my metal career too. It's funny. It's like that's another one. I totally get why people don't like Megadeth, and I don't argue it. I'm like, no, you're right. I love Megadeth, and I even like the voice too, and understand why people hate it all at the same time.
No, I don't hate it, but I prefer Metallica.
Yeah, right.
And,
Better vocals.
Well, I talked with Gabriel Medina for the episode 2. I spent a lot of time with him talking. I like Metallica. No, it's better Megadeth. No, it's better Metallica. But no, it's not that discussion. It's just show our taste for music and respect that. And do you want to hear that? Let's do it.
Yep.
If you don't like, nothing happens. They don't care. Well, Jarrod, well, I know you played more instruments and you're you learn for yourself, for self-taught.
Yes. Yeah, all the instruments I've learned, I didn't have any instructors for. I believe I tried to take guitar lessons once, and I went to like 2 of them, and did like any bad guitar student would do, and be like, I can't play awesome songs yet, I quit. Like, not willing to take the time in to learn right. So, and that was really a detriment, and if I could go back to give my younger self advice, or give young guitar players coming up advice, is no matter how boring it is, take the time now to learn music theory. Take the time now to learn your scales and learn those techniques. They will not take away from your style, no matter how much you think it will. It won't ruin how you play. It will only enhance it. And if I'd have realized that early on, I'd have been able to do a lot of this that I'm doing now much sooner. But everything happens for a reason, so it is what it is. But that is still advice I would give my younger self and any young guitar players coming up. And I forgot what you asked.
And you learn for self-taught.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then as I got older, again with YouTube and the internet being so prevalent and information being so available, I have since gone and self-taught by YouTube videos teaching the theory and all that. In high school, I did take piano lessons for a little bit, and that has stuck, apparently, since I'm now playing all of the orchestration on Suffer Not the Witch. It's not MIDI, it's all me playing. I don't know if you can see the keyboard over here, but it is playing, and so it's come back, and it's really helped me with all the other instruments, because piano is a great place to really learn theory, because it's like a map of all the notes just laid out in order. And unlike all the other instruments where it's laid out differently, it's just easy to understand it on the piano and move it to the other instruments.
Yeah.
And early on, I think in my teens and 20s, in the middle of in these bands and joining local bands and all that, I was going to Renaissance fairs a lot, and I was a fire performer there. So I got involved with blowing fire and choreographed sword fighting with swords that are on fire and spinning a staff that's on fire and that kind of thing. So I eventually brought that into the music as well. One aside, don't let me forget where I'm going with that. Other instruments. I'll get back to that, I promise.
Because, well, it's so interesting.
It's so
you're
like...
performing it.
I've got pictures of that somewhere, Polaroids, tell you how old I am. But I would implement that in metal shows at some point. I was a band as a bass player and vocalist for a local band called Ethereos at the time. It was like, I can't remember what you call it, but the melodic black metal, but that has female vocals singing. So it was a mix of black metal screams and female singing. And anyway, that's not the point. Point is I would blow fire at the shows, and the lady that was in the band I met at Renaissance fairs and convinced her to join the metal band because I thought her voice was so awesome that she could do it. She'd never played metal. but that ties into the other instrument here in a second. But there's a place called Dream World that I almost burned down on accident, mostly on accident. She would hold the torch on our first song, and the first song would open up with a real big, the band coming in. I would blow the fireball up into the air, and I'd start playing bass and then scream into the microphone. Well, Dream World, for those that remember it, the ceiling was like that spray-on insulation and the like black paint or something, whatever it was on there. Well, I blew a fireball straight up, and it hit that ceiling, and the fire just rolled down the whole ceiling.
Oh, wow.
So I'm just watching it go as I'm performing, because we're already in the song. I'm going, and I'm just watching this fire roll down the ceiling, and this is before Great White and all that stuff happened where the club burned down. So I'm watching it go and watching the sparkles and seeing the flames going, and then it eventually just goes out. Praise God it went out, but I was nervous at first, like, oh, that's not good. Not good.
you have a lot of concentration because just jumping. No.
That would be called panic and fear, not concentration.
We will die.
Yeah, I was a little worried, but it worked out.
Where's the fireworkers?
Yeah, it worked out. I promise that's not why Dream World shut down. So, wow. Yeah, that was good stuff. But going back to like where that all ties in, at those Renaissance festivals, there's all these different bands that would play, and there was one called Bedlam Bards that played this hilarious music where it was just a guy with a guitar and a guy with a mandolin. Mm-hmm. And the guy with the mandolin, Cedric, Cedric, I can't remember the rest of his stage name, but Cedric was his main stage name, and he was just a virtuoso on mandolin. First time I'd heard anything like that. His fingers were, and he's a big guy, probably, well over 6 foot tall and, big dude. And he just had this tiny little mandolin, and he would wail on that thing. These are all old, like, shanties and Irish music, and I had just never heard anything like that. And then he sang awesome, and the vocalist, their main vocalist was a girl named Lily, and she had just the most powerful voice I'd ever heard. She could go straight operatic with it. But she, they're singing and playing this stuff with no mics, just in the middle of these places. The festival was called Hawkwood, where I met all them and saw them really well. That festival's not around anymore, but I really loved all that. Oh. But I got so fascinated with mandolin at that point because it's so tiny, but it's so loud and so powerful, and there's things that only it can do. Just some things sonically where it seems like only it could do. And eventually, years later, I finally was gifted a mandolin by my wife for my birthday, and I'd finally started learning it. And now there's even mandolin stuff for Not the Witch songs. So, I love that thing. Taught myself that too. Turns out it's tuned just like a violin, and my fingers can handle how small the neck is. And I just took to it. I really like it. So those are kind of my two main instruments.
Okay, you play guitar, bass, mandolin, piano, and drums too.
I can kind of play drums. I can keep a beat, and the only reason I can play better drums now is because of a guy named Jarrod Castillo. He's the drummer for the Funeral Procession, and literally just being in the same room with the guy makes you a better drummer. But he's also a fantastic teacher, and so I would just listen to him as he was teaching others and ask him questions about stuff that he does. And so he taught me how to do double strokes on the bass pedals. Because just like with your hands, I can do double strokes. You can do that with your feet. I didn't know that. And I had no idea how I was playing so fast, so loud, even without triggers. Like, it's so loud. And, just being around that guy made me a better drummer. But I've never played drums in a band. I've played one live show as a drummer. It was weird how that happened, but there was a year with America Inc. show. We played something called Salt Fest, and a guy named Randy Tyler that does Christian open mics around here kind of put me on the spot and was like, hey, I'm doing a song. We're going to play a show, play it at this deal. This is like as the event's happening. And he's like, can you play drums? I'm like, what, like right now? Yeah. All right, let's go. So now I can check that box off. I have played live drums on stage. So, so by pure technicalities, yes, I can play drums.
Well, Jarrod, I'm excited to start to talk about your guitars.
Oh, where do you want to start? We could go chronologically, or we could go...
Chronology.
Okay, well, going all the way back to the beginning of that music store that my step-uncle had. Since he's since passed away, and my stepfather inherited two of his guitars. One of them I don't have in here, and it weighs a ton. But he custom built his own guitar, and the thing literally weighs like 8 to 10 pounds. It's giant. It's so heavy. But that one, you can tell it was the first guitar he ever built. Yeah. I'll just put it that way. I have it for sentimental value. My son plays it. He's got it in his room. But his first acoustic, it's a classical that he had. I've inherited that as well. And I do play that still. It's just a cheap old Yamaha. It's not, even now it's like $100 guitar. That has sentimental value to me, that it was from that same store where I first picked up a guitar. For that to come back 25 plus years later and be in my hands and in my possession is pretty wild to me. So, it's nothing impressive, it's nothing crazy, but just the story and the sentimental value of it is intense to me.
I think maybe for another people, it's not, it's a cheap guitar, but for us, for the musicians, are something special. Yeah. And they connect with that. It's a cheap guitar, but the energy and the magic on that instrument, it's the best feeling ever. Yeah. Well, I had my first guitar ever. I still keep it, and reminds me how I start to play and how I learned some songs, and I look and I play with that guitar and I feel happy, and I know it's the same way for you.
What happens on there.
Yeah.
Nothing special about it, but when I touch it, it is special. Mm-hmm. Just when I'm playing it, there's something about it. It's just like I'm playing memories. Mm-hmm. Very strange.
Wow. And what guitar do you want to show us?
Yeah, this is a guitar. It's my step uncle Bob. That was his first guitar. And what's funny about it is he was so protective of this guitar, and he gave a speech to my stepdad because he knew he was going, but let him know that don't let anybody get this guitar. Make sure it goes to somebody special. We hold on to it, protect it like it was he sold it like it was like a Stradivarius version of a of a guitar, And then I get it and I look it up. And I'm like, it's just a cheap old $100 Yamaha. There's nothing fancy about it. Yamaha 654. It looks like made in China, made Republic of China, made in Taiwan is what it says in there. And technically nothing special about it, but because of that, it still sits with me, and I love this thing. Yeah, so again, nothing special about it. It ends up being the first classical guitar I ever strung, and that was Process, because I'm hilariously bad at any sort of guitar maintenance or any of that, and even until the past couple of years, I had to get other people to string my guitars, to set my guitars up. That stuff I've just started learning in the past 2 to 5 years, since this iteration of America Inc. Gary Cox has been teaching me how to do all that, so it was an accomplishment for me to even string this thing. Here you go. It's just a plain old classical guitar with dead strings and... played that in forever, so I can remember how to play it. But yeah, it's, again, nothing crazy about it. There's sometimes I just pick it up to play it and maybe sing some songs
and travel for the time.
Yeah, and I'll just put it down and that's it. And really, I just fiddle on it, and I'm like, yeah, neat. I don't use it for anything, but again, this one's the one sentimental, not the one, but the sentimental value of it is why I keep it. Mm-hmm. Again, so really, that's all for this one, just to have a physical representation of that time of the first part of the story.
I'm curious how you play with the tone.
Oh, when I first started, it was literally, I would do single notes. Oh, so I was just sitting there and you just heard the first year or two of my guitar playing.
And you spend hours and hours.
I would just do that and be So that was how I played the first like 2 years of guitar. It was painful for every guitar player around that saw that. Again, like the owner of that store in, oh gosh, I wish I could remember the name of it. She eventually had a store here in Granbury too. Wish I could remember her name and the name of that place. But she would get on to me, and I mean, not subtly. She would get on to me so much. At one point, she was like, "You're not allowed to touch that guitar, the one I liked, until you learn how to play it right." And so I wouldn't even be allowed to touch it. She'd make me go grab something else. So.
Well, but I want to put on front your passion. You don't care. You don't care whatever are you doing, but you just want to play music, and you find your way to. Hey, that sounds good or not, but you recognize the song, right? And that's that's really nice. It's a nice story.
Man, it's interesting too that Ghost Riders in the Skylick. My stepdad does not play guitar, but for some reason he remembered like one thing he'd ever learned, and he taught me how to play that when I was playing with my thumb and everything, and he just thumbed it out. And so that's all like tied together. His uncle got me into the music store, and one of the first things I learned my stepdad taught me, who doesn't even play guitar. It's wild. It's wild. So hey, thanks, Kelly.
Well, can we switch the guitar right now?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, Jarrod, can you talk about this beautiful guitar?
So, the part of the story where I was talking about the pawn shop in North Richland Hills where I got the cheap guitar for like $100. It's this guitar. So, this is where I really first started learning everything on, where I did all the learning on thumb and everything. Yeah, I picked it up at that pawn shop, and this was really the first several years of my guitar journey was on this thing. And I've kept it ever since, and at some point, it broke. It started warping real bad, and when I was in funeral procession the first time, again, late 2000s, Nakoa fixed it for me, and it needed a major fix. So what he did is he completely snapped the headstock off, and then rebolted it and glued everything back together. Like did some surgery on this thing, and it was buzzing everywhere. You could barely play it. Made no notes. And then now, all these years later, it's still playing beautifully from Nakoa's fix. Because that fix has been 10, 15 years ago, somewhere around there. Yeah, oh my gosh. Man, we're old. Nakoa, we're old. So it still plays wonderfully. And for like campfire playing or acoustic playing, because there's no electric hookups or anything, I use this one. It doesn't have the greatest tone, but it's really loud and it comes across really well just in an acoustic setting. I eventually became worship leader at a church here in Granbury, and I started with this guitar. Kind of where that came from is going back to the Renaissance festivals. I started to learn the guitar songs of that band Bedlam Bards that I thought were so funny, because some of them were just like 2 or 3 chord songs you would sing to, just with a thick Irish accent. And so I would learn them, and they were raunchy. They were raunchy, funny songs. But I started taking this to high school with me, and I would sing the songs before class, and I'd start to get a crowd. And the teachers, as much as they thought it was funny, they were a little racy. The songs were a little racy, and they made me stop doing it because it was getting too popular. So I had to stop singing my raunchy bard songs. But later down the road, I joined a church here in Granbury, and they eventually needed a worship leader because the family that was doing it moved, and I kept getting convicted about it. And it was like, oh, so you can play these easy chord songs and simple songs and sing about raunchy, bar winches and things. And I get this conviction is like, how about you sing about God and do something important with it? Like, oh, wow. So I learned a few hymnals, and then texted my pastor. He was like, hey, I've learned a few songs, because the pastor and his wife had been filling in until then. And there's a lot of work that goes into pastoring, so I was like, that's got to be exhausting to do the music too. So I texted him, I was like, hey, do you need me to, I've got a few songs I can sing for worship. Would you like me to fill in this weekend? And he said yes, and so I did. And then after when I stepped off stage, he just patted my shoulder. He's from West Texas, so he's got a certain personality type. He just patted my shoulder real hard, looked at me and said, "You're worship leader now." And so, oh, okay. I don't know what that means. Okay. And that year I ended up learning like 45 new songs and just everything I could do where it was a guitar and singing. I would learn it. And that's where it came across with just simple chord songs. Just just like simple singing and chords, and I love playing and singing that kind of stuff. And I'm gonna play it a little bit just because I like playing it. But again, this is just for sitting around a campfire, hanging out at the house. For some of us, sometimes I'd do like family worship where we all just sit in the living room and sing worship songs together. It's great for that. It's great. You don't have to plug it in. You just pick it up and play. And that's really how that one, what purpose this one serves. And the fact that it's my first guitar and is tied into the metal with the fact that Nakoa is the reason it still works and can play again.
Yeah, it's interesting how on your process you switch on two different worlds or styles of music.
Yes.
Right? Well, you played with at the church, right?
Yes.
And spend time with Nakoa and spend time on metal music, right?
Yes.
And how is that switch?
Well, originally, you're gonna getting into some very personal stuff here, but originally when I was playing metal, I just did not really care. Honestly, I didn't live out my faith properly. I didn't implement it into my life, and so I would just ignore the lyrics I was singing. I would ignore the stuff that I was talking about, or who in the band, the stuff that I was doing, or even the stuff that I was listening to. I would just ignore the content of it and just listen to the music and just, it's fine. Eventually, I couldn't separate that. And that's where Suffer Not the Witch comes in here. But I couldn't separate that eventually, and I stepped away from the scene for about 10 years. And I didn't know how to marry it anymore. I felt like I couldn't. And then I started to realize, after really getting deeper into the scripture, how the words were the only thing interfering. There's nothing in there to prohibit having heavy music with how I worship God. So I married them together and started making the lyrics matter. Instead of the music being there just to be music, it's like, I want to play music. That's the most important part for me. And this is personally, so they don't have to take this like this is how you have to do it. This is how it is for me personally. Music is a vehicle for a message. Mm-hmm. It is how a message is carried. So the message is what matters. And so being so convicted with my faith in Christ, I had to put them together. I started singing the worship music around this same time. It'll come in earlier and later. America Inc. formed with myself, Brian Cox, who's the vocalist of Funeral Procession, and his brother Gary. We formed America Inc., and that was to talk about all the different atrocities that are happening in the world, kind of the different conspiracy theories that aren't theories, and having a way out of that darkness. And to us, the answer and the way out of that darkness is Christ, the one true light, the truth. So we married it together with that sort of content. What I've done now is I have to sing openly about my faith. I have to sing openly and put it together where if I'm just playing music to be a musician, I'm not using it all. I'm not doing it all. It's just a piece of it, essentially. It's like I'm typing on a keyboard just to type instead of using the entire computer. Like you're using the computer for something, not just using the computer. to use the computer, if that makes any sense. Again, these are all personal convictions of mine and how it has played out. So now, lyrically, it's all very tied together with the music. And the only way I could speak to myself and how my faith plays out is with how I am. You know, we're made the way we are for a reason. We do what we do for a reason. You know, in the view of my faith, we are made the way we are to use our gifts that God has given us for His glory. So that is why I sing about my personal testimony, sing about Christ, put that all together with the music, because the music is a part of me. The testimony is how God has saved me. It's all one thing now. So I marry that all together. Again, there's a psalm that Psalm 150. It's the last psalm in the book of Psalms that really covers music and talks about that. And it's like, let the high sounding cymbals, the low sounding cymbals, the harps, the stringed instruments, let everything that have breath praise the Lord. So literally, it's like, do you think metal's restricted? Like God didn't create that too? That psalm's like, no, all of it you can do. So it's like, it was like permission. Honestly, it's like, yeah, you can still do this for His glory. And I'm like, well, I believe I will do that then. Wait, you mean metal and worship? I'm in.
Well, thank you, Jarrod. Well, because you played at church and play with Nakoa and you start to play electric music, electric guitar. I'm sorry. How you know what kind of guitar you need for your process on the electric guitar?
Ooh, see, now we're getting into some meat. I started to really get into black metal around all this time. I was learning like Jeff Loomis style rhythms and John Schaefer style rhythms. Getting into black metal was like a whole new world where it's, you know, bar chords and different types of stuff and strumming. So it's like I had to almost unlearn my tight picking hand and down picking hand to a loose strummy hand. And then I started getting into Opeth. And so how to tie this all in. If I had to talk about the different bands that influenced me in black metal as far as guitar playing wise and style, it would be Nine Equilibrium era Emperor, Cruelty and the Beast era Cradle of Filth, Puritanical Euphoric Misanthropia era Dimmu Borgir. And that's all very different than like the Iced Earth stuff that really influenced me, which was like Horror Show and Previous, any of that. And the Nevermore stuff that really influenced me, which was like the Dead Heart, basically the 7-string era, which was started in Dead Heart and a Dead World into like whatever album My Voyager is on. I can't remember. Enemies of Reality. I can't remember what album that's called. But that era. So it's all these different styles, even just in the metal, where I'm having to completely adjust. And then in the background, I have this stuff going on where, you know, I'm playing these like Irish bardic tunes. And so I had to have a lot of things. And early on, I couldn't find a guitar that could handle all of it. I would always find something that could handle a piece of it. Where like, oh, this guitar feels really good for my picking hand and for power chords, but every time I try to play a bar chord or a regular chord, it hurts or I can't get it right. I started to realize I needed low action, I needed a small neck, and I needed the ability to have room to pick because I needed to be tight. I needed tight picking like that, but I also needed like open strumming like that all in one. And I never really found that until Funeral Procession. And if you need to know anything about gear and know what will do what, for what reason, and how, Nakoa is your guy. Like, he knows every guitar. He's probably played every guitar. And he has such a mix of styles that he can understand how you play and marry you to a guitar. And he did just that. And that's how I picked up a PRS Custom 24 tin top. It was green. Man, it was just the greatest guitar I'd ever played. It fit all those, it checked off all those boxes. I could play tight power chords, and I could gallop on a string, but then I could open up and play a big chord. I could go Opeth style which they were the ones that made PRSs popular, even for us. And so I could play big chords, I could play small chords, I could gallop, I could strum, I could do it all on that guitar. And that was my best friend for 15 years. And up until the second iteration of Funeral Procession, I still had that guitar. The first few shows that Funeral Procession played after the album release, you can see pictures of me with that guitar still. And then eventually upgraded to a Majesty, which we'll look at here in a little bit, because it's the only guitar after all this time that I was like, finally, I'm willing to sell this and get this Majesty. And it's the only thing that could beat it. And it's, man, I haven't looked back. I regret nothing. Man, it's so awesome. But yeah, I started with 6-string, though. I never really moved up to 7-string until probably 2016 or 2015 or 2016, really. Man.
10 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah.
Okay.
Chronological order.
The guitar right now?
Yeah. So going back to the Renaissance era, Renaissance Festival era, getting into the mandolin. Since my wife bought me this for my birthday a few years ago, and I finally started really learning it, and man, it's just so fun. And I wanted to implement it in metal so bad, but I didn't know where to do it. And now I've realized where I can put it in, and it's in Suffer Not the Witch. But I've used it for worship as well, like singing worship songs, and because you can just do strummy chords on it. And just simple strumming and singing just like you would guitar songs. I realized I could do that on here. This is tuned just like a violin, mandolins are. But obviously you don't have the bow. You've got these octave strings. They're tuned the same, just octave the same. It's just because there's 2 strings, it has that sound like a 12-string guitar almost. But I really got into bluegrass after looking at all the worship songs, because I love the style of bluegrass worship, and there's a lot of mandolin in that. So you started learning chop chords, where the guitar will be strumming, but basically where the snare beat would be is where a mandolin hit would be. Where the kick drum would be is where the stand-up bass would be in bluegrass. So you're like doo da doo da doo da doo da doo. See how it's like on that upbeat? That's where chop chords come in, and then a lot of this is where I feel like I'm more comfortable with leads, because my style of leading doesn't feel right on guitar, but it feels pretty fun and comfortable on mandolin. Probably because I can't shred. I think that's what it is. Like, you don't shred on a mandolin. But it's a little lick by a guy called Bill Monroe. As soon as you start getting into mandolin, you start finding these old players that are great, and Bill Monroe is just awesome. So he's like an iconic bluegrass mandolin player, and he also has like the Appalachian Wail with his singing. Anyway, I digress. But I just really love this, and then starting to implement it with metal, and because folk metal, it just fits naturally in. And then with Suffer Not the Witch, I started using it to basically play lead parts. Where I would normally have a guitar lead, I switch it to mandolin instead and kind of fill it in there, and it feels more natural for me, and I'll get into that more later. But yeah, mandolin, I love this thing. Just a neat little... all kinds of ways to play it. Love this thing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jarrod, for sharing the mandolin. The first mandolin on Guitar Memories. Wow.
Yeah, first mandolin.
Well, that's your wife gift to you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, she could tell I was. She can tell when I get obsessed with something, and that was happening with this. And she finally was just like, "Happy birthday! Play this thing, jeez."
Wow, it's really really nice story. Well, I want to ask you because I know you are a solo artist right now.
Yes.
Yeah, you played with the Funeral Procession a few years ago on the 2H.
Yeah, the two different like eras of them, and then over the past, I think I stepped away within the past 6 months to a year, something like that. It hasn't been that long ago at this point of the recording.
Why you decide start your own project, the Suffer Now the Witch?
Well, with the Funeral Procession, I loved everything they did. It's just my scheduling. It's as simple as that. I mean, I'm married with 3 kids and have a homestead and a full-time job. And I'm living in Granbury. And they need somebody to be there every week during the weeknights. And I have a rotating schedule. So sometimes I work nights for 3 months. Sometimes I work days for 3 months. And I couldn't be consistent enough to show up. And that wasn't doing them a service. They need somebody, especially with where they're headed, they need somebody that can dedicate the time to physically be there at least once a week. And I couldn't do that. And so really I stepped away, and I didn't know this was going to happen. There wasn't an intention at the time to go step away and have a new project. I was going to focus on America Inc. because we could do that remotely mostly, and they could come out here. But it was easier to schedule that stuff. But then Gary had some issues, and he's had to step away for a while and deal with stuff that's going on in his personal life. And one day I went to an open mic in Haltom and gave my testimony about how I was saved by Christ, and I'd never done that publicly. After all these years, got saved when I was 17, and after all these years, I never gave a public testimony. I did it then. It has a lot to do with witchcraft and Satanism and Freemasonry, all these things that, because of my family and because of getting into the black metal and all that, I really went hardcore into. And after that, all of a sudden, really a song just came to me. And it was what later became Rains on the Wicked. But that happened in one night. I was just sitting at my desk, and it just started coming to me, riff after riff, and just structure happened overnight. And I do not write songs quickly, so the fact that it just really all fell into place overnight was wild to me. And the style was my old school like influences of black metal and like symphonic metal and things like that. And it just, I knew it didn't fit with America Inc. I wasn't in Funeral Procession anymore. And it was just strange that it happened. And then all of a sudden, this name literally just pops into my head, and all like my testimony starts playing over in my head. And I was like, I think I'm gonna do something with this. So I just recorded the song, and just things just kept falling into place, and there was no plan. And I was like, okay, this is a full song. I'm gonna go ahead and record the full song. And then the name came, and I told my wife about the idea for the art. It's like, I think the 3 crosses, like Christ and the 2 crosses when he was crucified, can actually lay out in the name. It was like, suffer not the witch, but the T's are, you got the T for the witch as the big one, you got the T here for not, and the T there for thee. So she drew the art up, and then she made this. I'm like, God, that's a legit logo. That looks really good, babe. And then more songs started coming all of a sudden. This is all over like a 6-month period. This all just comes together, and all of a sudden I got 4 songs sitting there with bass and orchestration and drums and everything. And I'm realizing with all the inner monitor rig and everything that I have set up, that also thanks to Nakoa is all how this came about. Nakoa and Brian both helped me with all this, and then Gary getting equipment and working on it. We would help each other with equipment, American Inc. and Funeral Procession, and we'd bounce ideas off of each other. With the fact at the time 2 of us were in both bands helped a lot. Yeah, it just kept happening. Things just kept happening. It kept happening quickly. And then I mentioned it to the projects. America Inc. was going to get ready to play some shows. so I mentioned that to one of the promoters around here. His name's Brian Idell. He's been just instrumental in so many bands being able to take off from here. He's a fantastic dude, great promoter, books wonderful shows. So I mentioned the bands to it, and just so happened at one point he was like, "Hey, I don't need America Inc. for something, but is your that one man project? Could you play a show?" I hadn't even finished writing the fourth song. I hadn't written the orchestration for it, and it was like a couple of weeks. The show was a couple of weeks from when he asked for it, and I was like, yeah. I was like, I think I can do that, and so I said yes, and then panicked and started being like, well, I need to finish these backing tracks and finish writing the last song. Oh goodness. And so it all came together. I had no plans of playing live shows that soon. I was like, at this point, deciding I'll write something, I'll write an EP or something, and then I'll eventually play shows and I'll get that going. And Idell approached me with that, and I just felt strongly to say yes, and did, and have been off to the races ever since, honestly. And have been doing these one-man shows now. I just finished my fourth one last night. And again, this is all started and reached this point over about a 6-month window. And so really, again, with personal stuff, I give all the glory to God. This shouldn't work. It shouldn't be working. It shouldn't have been as successful as it has now. And now I have a professional EP in the revision stage of mixing and mastering that's going to be coming out this year. And the fact that it didn't even exist or have songs 6 months ago is just crazy to me. So that's kind of how it all happened with Suffer Not the Witch, and why I'm here now and doing that so much.
That's that's really nice. The passion. Yeah. Just click on you, on everything.
Yeah.
All your story is just click and do it. And do you want to do that? Yes, I don't know what I'm doing right now, but okay, let's do it. That's really nice. Thank you, Jarrod, for that. Well, can you show us your electric guitars, please?
Yes, we'll go to 6th string first.
Okay. Well, Jarrod, this is the first Music Man. It's a Music Man, or it's
Yeah, it's a
an
Music
instrument?
Man.
Okay.
Yeah, Music Man Majesty.
Well, I want to know what kind of Music Man, and excited to hear that guitar.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's a Music Man Majesty, the Petrucci's signature guitar. And again, this is thanks to Nicola. I never would have even seen one of these things. But after all those years of having that PRS, just still an awesome guitar. This was the only one that topped it. And when he showed this to me, I was like, I have to have one. How do I get it? And so he was willing to sell my PRS for me. He made it all happen. He got that thing sold and got this for me. No, I won't look back at that because this thing is just phenomenal. It has a thinner neck than a Custom 24, the PRS, and almost, I don't want to say too thin, but it's shorter too. Like the whole profile just seems so small, but not too small. It's like your fingers just fall where they need to go instead of you having to think about where to place them. You barely have to move to play this thing. It's almost like cheating. But the stock pickups are just so good. They sound great. I couldn't tell you what they are. It's these. That's about as far as I know. But they sound amazing. And it has an acoustic emulator pickup that I can never remember. Piezo, there you go. I always just call it a pizza pickup because I can never remember what it's called. But yes, it has a piezo as well, and whew, that thing is amazing, especially live when you just need to switch quick to have acoustic emulation. Boy, it's convincing.
Oh wow! And how long you have this guitar?
Let's see. How long have I had it? Somewhere around a year, maybe less than 2 years. Because I played the first 2 or 3 shows that the Funeral Procession played after the album release. I still had the PRS. And then somewhere in there, that's when I sold the PRS and got this. And I played a few shows with the Funeral Procession with this. And then now I play this on one song during the Suffer Not the Witch set. I technically don't have to switch guitars from my 7 to the 6 because I could just play it all on there. But I want the excuse to play this. just holding this thing is amazing. And also the ease at which the song is to play on the 6, it's just amazing because it's so easy to play the like triads and bar chords and bigger chords on this than it is on the 7. Ironically, I think I play smaller stuff on the 7 where it's chunkier but not as big as far as chord wise. But then when I play bigger, strummier stuff, I go to this Majesty because it's just like butter, man. It's just smooth.
Yeah, well, can I hear your beautiful Majesty?
Yes, you can. So. Hear how clear that is? How I can play a full-on chord and you can hear every bit of it. That's really important for black metal because you are playing a lot of blade chords a lot. You play the typical bar chords. First off, you don't really... The action's so low on this that you barely even have to press to get down here on there. Like, and you don't have to actually like use your muscle. Like, sometimes you can feel your hand flexing. I don't ever feel that when I'm playing this. I can just rest easy when I'm playing anything. Typical black metal bar chords, smooth. They're just so smooth on this. Even the PRS was great. I really have nothing bad to say about the PRS at all. This is just better. So that's really all I can say. And the techniques I was learning early on from like John Schaefer would be the galloping and triplets and things like that, where you have to have the pick real tight. See there's barely any pick coming. I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but there's barely any pick coming out from there. And that's so you can hit tight and move fast. I can't remember how to play it. But it's just so smooth. Everything's smooth on here. I've got the room to do that and stay tight without hitting too many other strings, because as you're doing that and palm muting, you can't pick like that and keep your hand closed. So you have a real chance of just having that kind of thing happen or accidentally smacking something. So you have to have the way I do it. I don't know if it's the right way to do it or not, but the way I do it, I have to have my hand open and I have to palm mute tight, and I have to really like concentrate on moving quickly without flexing too hard. Because if you start letting yourself get too tight in your muscles, in your forearm and shoulder and stuff, you'll fatigue really quick. So you have to learn how to mix your arm and your wrist to do that kind of stuff. So that's the main takeaway of the like John Schaefer era of learning the guitar. The stuff I was really influenced by Jeff Loomis from was really more composition and just the 7-string style that he had. So I'll get into some of that as I get the 7-string. But then hearing like Cradle of Filth as far as like black metal and Emperor, that stuff really started influencing me with learning how to do like speed picking and single note riff writing. Because like I haven't played these in so long. And I normally wouldn't, but because it's related to my guitar playing, I will. But let's see if I can remember this. So that speed picking and single note riff writing, that's what I Am the Black Wizards by Emperor. Not only are you having to learn how to like keep a constant, you start to learn tempo and time, like becoming your own metronome. Because if you start getting sloppy with that, the timing gets weird and off. And then you're having to learn how to skip strings without causing noise too. And again, I can't speed pick like that with my hands closed. I have a real hard time. Up until the last few years, I always had my fingers open. I've been working on keeping them closed because it's easier to not hit the rest of the strings when you do that. But with a screen, learning how to speed pick and keep that same while moving back and forth on different strings, that's something that like learned from playing Emperor stuff. Cradle of Filth more taught me about composition and orchestration, and that you can hear that in Suffering Out the Witch, especially in like Witch's Den is a song that will be out that's real heavy in. Where that mixes, those two styles mix together. I'll play a quick riff from that. More string skipping and speed picking. So that's where that kind of married together, and I've got orchestration over the top of that and piano that really accents a lot of that. Biggest takeaway to like the speed pick and riff writing like that, single note guitar carrying instead of big guitar. I always kind of treat that as like a vocal melody, because in extreme metal, like with the black metal, the vocals are all screaming, but I want something pretty in there. I always need that. So it's almost like instead of something that would be sung, the guitar is singing. Essentially, so that's where those patterns in my head come from. The different style is just speed pick a vocal melody, essentially. And then I'm screaming over that, but that's carrying a melody, so I'm good. Like I really like. I never lost the taste for having melody. Though I cut my teeth in like the Texas death metal scene, like the late '90s, early 2000s, which was very percussive, very like basically where slam got its birth. But I never lost the taste for melody. I always wanted it. I think that's why I always leaned more towards the black metal and symphonic metal, and eventually power metal. It's because I still want something pretty in there. And honestly, the heavier it is, the more I want something pretty involved. So like, I really like that sort of thing as well. I'll show you more of that when we get to the 7. So really big chords, bar chords, the picking patterns, that's where it all kind of played out and developed into the 6-string style. And then, and again, learning kind of basic composition from Iced Earth and John Schaefer, because a lot of his stuff is power chords, but really good melodies and just good writing. I'm going to switch this over to some clean stuff so I can show you that pickup.
Okay.
All right, so switching over to the clean, staying on the pickup it's already on, just to get a difference, to hear the difference in the sound. You've got your basic chords. I'm on a clean channel here, which essentially is kind of my old channel I think I had from Funeral Procession, and I just adjusted a few things for this. That's on the, I don't know which pickup it's on, but I'm going to switch it over just to the piezo, and just so you can hear the difference in the strumming. That's literally just changing one pickup. Again, just... It's a world of difference in that.
Yeah.
And you can get such good clean tones on so many guitars, but there's something special about that piezo pickup that just really captures like you're on an acoustic, but with the clarity of the electric guitar. Just, oh, I love it. Just... so much room to work with that. And that's only, I'm still on the, I'm not on the right pickup. If you put it in the center, again, I'm bad with gear. It's, you know, I can't build gear. You know, I saw where you talked to Mike and he's like building guitars from scratch and like, that's so impressive. I cannot do that. I have to have somebody basically have it right for me and then I just play that. Didn't even learn how to start stringing my guitar correctly until up until the past couple of years. Like that's how bad I was at it. My wife had to string my guitars. And like as much as that's embarrassing to say, I'm saying it out here in public just so people know. Maybe someone's out there that feels the same way and actually doesn't say it. I'll embarrass myself. My wife was stringing my guitars. Nicoa and Gary had to set them up for me, you know, just like make it work. It no work. So finally starting to learn how to do that. So if I don't name the right pickup and don't really know what I'm doing here, it's because I don't know. But putting it where you typically would for acoustic. It's just more open. So if you're in a pinch playing live or something like that and you don't have an acoustic and you really need it, that can do it.
If you put the switch on the middle, the top, it's mixed.
It mixes, yeah. It's like a mix of the piezo and the regular. So you've got just the natural pickup it's on, which I think is a mix of the two. Then it mixes the piezo in these. Then you have the full piezo. And they all have their own unique sound. So you might, if you have leads, you might mix it, maybe. There's certain ways you can mix it. Who knows? Like, it's up to you and what your effects are, but you have all the versatility in the world with this thing.
Yeah, but it's just one jack, right?
Yeah, just one jack. Yeah, it's just the one. At least for the Music Man. I don't think that's the case with all of them. I don't know if that is or not. And you can see the back of it, where this is where everything, how the setup is. It even has everything labeled. It's really nice. You have your piezo bass, piezo treble, mag piezo mix, mag boost, mono stereo. Because you can get in here and adjust it just from right here. You can go right in without taking the panel off. It's got openings for you to adjust this stuff. I don't do that because I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, because well, I never play a Music Man or a Sterling.
Oh, nice.
I didn't know that they have piezo because I never get interested. But I'm so interested on Parker guitars, right? And Parker guitars, they have piezo. The Fly Mojo series, they have piezo. And when you said something right here, like I could say, oh, the guitar had piezo.
Yes.
Yeah, and okay, I know what is the mechanic on the Parker guitars, and I told you, oh wow, I didn't know, but Parker guitars are so expensive, and the brand closed.
Yeah.
And I'm obsessed with it. Really, it's really expensive, but Music Man, it's expensive too.
This isn't cheap.
Yeah. Oh, it's a beautiful guitar. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Jarrod,
I love any excuse to play this one.
Well, I want to ask you how you take your music on the stage, because you are a solo artist and you are not using invite another musicians.
Right.
Are you yourself on the stage and that's it?
Yes.
Your guitar and you have backing tracks. how you make that.
So what I perform live is my guitar and the vocals. I do both of those live. But backing track wise, I have drums, bass, and orchestration, and I'll explain how that all gets routed a little bit here. So my guitar is running through a Helix floor, and so I have all the profiles set up on that. So that's going direct in. There's no amps, no speakers, any of that. I've got an in-ear setup that's running off of an X32 mixer, and so I've got I think it's a Phoenix something. I can't remember the full name of it for the wireless headset. So I've got my in-ears going, and everything I have, my microphone's plugged into my in-ear setup. The guitars are plugged into that, and on a laptop I have my backing tracks. This isn't ideal, but it's what I have for now. I've got my drums hard panned left on one track, and on that same track I have the orchestration and bass hard panned right. I then come out of my Focusrite Scarlett is what I run. Out of the headphone jack, I have a left-right split cable. So the drums will go into one channel of my in-ear setup. The bass and orchestration go into the other. So essentially I have channel 1 is my vocal mic, channel 2 is my guitar, channel 3 is the drums, channel 4 is the bass and orchestration, and I hand a snake cable to the audio engineer and just have it all labeled like that, and they can plug that into their inputs, and they can have those 4 tracks to play with however they please, and it does not interfere with what I hear in my ears. I can adjust that however I want. It doesn't affect what you hear out there. Yeah. So because of that, I'm able to play full-on one-man shows, because I can play guitar, I can perform the vocals, and then everything else, bass, orchestration, drums, are being played by a backtrack. If that ever changes and there's other members of the band, we've got guys interested, then I'll move up, but I don't feel the pressure to. I don't feel like I need to force anything, because the acceptance of one-man band is much higher than it used to be, to put it calmly. It's not looked down upon, really. It's fine to play shows. People aren't upset to see it. Yes, it's better to have a full band. I'll never argue that. But it is still fully acceptable now by the scene, it seems, to have a one-man band. So my gear I can all carry myself. It's just, a rack that has the X32 and the power splitter or whatever you call it, and then the again, I'm bad with gear, the Phoenix thing for the headsets, and then the Helix floor and my guitars. So I'm not carrying anything crazy. No speakers, no amps, no any of that.
Just the Helix, the in-ears, the laptop, and go to the show.
Yeah, exactly. So I've got a road case about this big, and then my laptop bag and my Helix bag, and I can put everything else I need and all the wires and accessories in all that, and that's all I take.
I ask you just for some people want to do music, but I know family, jobs, school, college, whatever, and they want to show their projects.
Yes.
Yeah, and oh no, I need people and sketch with more people. No, you can do whatever you want. And that's advice for me. Yeah. because before the podcast, I want to play, I want to share music, I want to compose, I want to and I don't need people. I know you can do that, but I never feel comfortable with the idea I want to go and show my project for myself. Right. And you are doing that. And that's really impressive.
Well, thank you. Mm-hmm. Well, I think the most important part is don't ask permission to do any of your passions. Just do it. Mm-hmm. And it either works or it doesn't. But you get a lot more fulfillment out of just doing it than you do out of wondering if it would have worked. On one hand, you do need to be professional about your sound and care about the quality, but don't let that get to the point of perfectionism to where you don't do anything and it paralyzes you. So don't let anything stop you. There's a way to do everything, and just because it's that way to start off doesn't mean it's going to stay that way. I mean, everything needs to grow. You can't start at the end game. you've got to start somewhere. So start somewhere, and then go from there and see where it takes you. If it looks like this, great. This isn't the simplest setup I've had. I mean, the first show that I played was Suffer Not the Witch. It was on main stage at Haltom, and I had my backing tracks literally just all mixed as one track, so it didn't even have a splitter, and I had it on my cell phone, and I'd plug it still had headphone jacks in it, so it was the headphone jack straight out into the in-ear, and that was it. And the first show, that's how I ran my sound, but the headphone jack broke as I got on stage. So it wouldn't work. So I was like, okay, that's fine. I'll grab my second phone. I've got the files on another phone. I'll do that. So I went on there. Headphone jack broke. Again, on the second one on stage. I had no other files. I had no way to get my backing tracks out there at all. So the sound guy, he's thinking like, okay, this is real tough. But man, what a champ this guy was. He said, can you email it to me? I'm like, well, I don't have unlimited data, and I can't send anything that big. And he was like, okay, well, just send it to me on Facebook. I don't have social media on my phone, so I didn't have the ability to do that either. So what ended up happening, and he was a contractor, so he didn't have access to the computer behind the behind the board, so he couldn't just log on and grab something. So what I had to do is email him a smaller version of the file that I had, an MP3 version of the file, and the workaround was he took that, opened it in his Facebook Messenger to get around the restrictions that he understandably had, to be able to play it out of Facebook Messenger through the mixing board, through the main speakers at main stage. So my first show literally almost didn't happen. And then it's backing tracks mixed all together, no way to separate it. Sound guys having to run that, running off of a buffered playing out of Facebook Messenger. That was my backing tracks. And it worked. And it worked. It sounded great. I don't know, this guy was an absolute champion for making that happen. But to say, don't worry about how simple your setup is. If it works, then it will work. Don't overthink it. Just make it happen. Just get out there and make it happen. Since then, I've been able to split the tracks. I'm going to go even further after this. Trevor, sound guy, one of the sound guys at Halton around, offered to help out and show me how to split everything even further. Because with the X32, there's ways to just go any direction you want with it. And the awesome thing about this scene is so many people are willing to help each other. And he didn't have to offer that. He just did. And I'm not the only one he's done that to. He's helped out so many other bands around here. And such an amazing sound. Our sound guys in this scene, I know we're here to talk about guitars, but our sound guys in this scene are absolutely phenomenal. They all have great interpersonal skills. They have insane talent. It's just insane talent. They know their gear, and they're very willing to work with the bands. If you just show them a little bit of respect and understand they got a lot going on, they will make it happen. And it's just amazing stuff. But all that to say, don't let anything stop you. There is a way to make it work no matter what you're doing. I mean, I even at Saltfest had a band come up from Houston that was all backing tracks, and he just played guitar. Even the vocals were backing tracked. People just want to see you live. They don't really care how it looks like. Yes, there's preferences. Yes, there's a better way to do it. But they still just ultimately want to see you live. And I think that's going to become more and more prevalent now as AI is taking over. People want to see real people doing real things, even if it's not all of it. Just seeing some of it being a real person is going to be enough to be like, oh, good, that's a real person. So don't let it stop you.
Well, thank you, Jarrod. It's an amazing story because, was crazy. Was crazy, but you're successful, and you just said the people, it's ready to help each another. Yeah? And that's a really good point. Yeah? Well, can we switch the guitar right now?
Yep.
Well, Jarrod, this guitar intimate me. Well, I feel intimidate
No.
for this guitar. Well, can you talk about your guitar? Your huge guitar.
I love this guitar. So I never lost my love for Paul Reed Smith. As much as I love the Majesty, I still love Paul Reed Smith. And as I started to get into extended range guitar, I really wanted to hunt for one that felt right, because I require different things out of a 7 than I do a 6. And I could never quite find it. The ranges were always too small. Ironically, the necks always felt too small. And this just matched everything. It's the PRS Mark Holcomb 7-string. It's an SE model, but like, don't let that fool you. This thing's a monster. This is the first wave of the Mark Holcomb. There's a second wave with different pickups. I think these are the Scarlet and Crimson pickups. I can't remember exactly. But gosh, it just sounds amazing. It feels perfect. It's everything you'd want out of an extended range guitar. And it feels great. Another side note too is I don't down tune the guitars. I might drop to like drop A, or I don't really use drop D ever, but I stay in standard tuning for all the metal and everything. This is standard tuning, so it's B standard. The 6-string was E standard. Just more preference, personal preference stuff. Clarity. You can stay just as heavy in that tuning, but you get so much clarity out of that because you're not fighting the low end of everything else. You get into a 7, you're still fighting low end no matter what you do. But the clarity of this guitar is amazing, and what really sets it apart for me personally is the coil split in the pickup. Because you can stay normal and it stays heavy and clear. And I don't know, so nice. The coil split gives it that like genty growl, I guess would be the best way to put it. It gives it a bite to it. And while I, kind of like talking about Meshuggah, while I do not like gent, I still respect it for what it does, and I like a lot of the tones of gent. I just don't like the music. So this kind of captures that. You just pop this up and it goes into a coil split. How that works, I don't know. Those of you that do know what I mean when I say coil split. It does that. But it has a lot more bite and growl to it. I feel like it captures more pick attack. I don't know what it really is that it's doing. There's just something about it where I really like the coil split sound. And this guitar feels so smooth. It has a lot of the same characteristics as that Majesty, where you don't feel like you have to really press it. And I know a lot of that's set up, but even with equally set up guitars, this one feels better. Just feels right. I love PRS. I get to say I still have a PRS. And it really is everything I need out of a 7. That really started with America Inc. What's funny is these have paralleled both times. The first time Funeral Procession was around, Brian and I also at the Funeral Procession had America Inc. going with his brother Gary. And we weren't extended range at the time, but we never really did anything that first wave. Couldn't keep a drummer. Drum machines weren't an option back then. And but then reformed America Inc. and then TFB reformed as well. So Gary and I decided to go extended range. We really felt like we needed it. 7's a good number anyway. And we really took to it, but we don't really approach it in the same way as is, I guess, typical, where the percussive, genty style and down tuning and all that. We still play it very much the same style we play our 6, but have an extended range. So, like American Inc. type stuff ended up coming out in like a melodic death metal style all the way to like heavy rock. I don't know, we've been compared to anything like Soilwork to Five Finger Death Punch, which are so wildly different, but I'm like, whatever. It sounds however you think it does. My big influences for this style were, again, Jeff Loomis and Matt Heafy from Trivium, both vocally and guitar. But guitar-wise, both of those guys had extended range styles that I really, really dug. And that just sort of came out into what America Inc. is. I'll play some extended range stuff, and you can probably even tell just from the little riffs I play the slight differences between the 6 and the 7. But you get the point. There's just something special about 7. I don't know. I just love that extended range. I like where I can take the notes. There's so many times on 6 where I'd be writing this style and I'd want to go a little deeper and just couldn't quite get there. And then I'd try to adjust with like a different type of chord, and it just wasn't the same. So I don't know. There are just times where I can't explain properly why, but there's times where I feel better having that extra B. The few extra notes you hear, B, C, and D that you get on here. Sometimes that's all I needed to make the song right. Yeah. And it opened up the songwriting like crazy for me. We have an entire album now with American Ink, and now a lot of the songs in Suffer Not the Witch are on 7 as well, but I do both with Suffer Not the Witch. Mm-hmm. I write specifically and intentionally on a 6 string for like Witch's Den, and then the rest of the songs I have right now are all 7. And they're very different than American Ink because, again, I'm intentionally going for my roots on Suffer Not the Witch with like black metal and symphonic metal and that kind of stuff, mm-hmm. more melodic. But even then, even with the strumming, sometimes I just want that deeper note, and that's where this came from. That first riff, this is the first riff ever for Suffer Not the Witch that really was intentionally for it. So I can just get some notes in the chords and get lower register notes in some of these big chords or triads that I just really like having. I can't explain any good technicality aside from that sounds good. I like that.
It's just your heart.
Yep, exactly. Mm-hmm. And there's so many different directions you can go with a 7 because you can still use chords. You can still use everything you can on a 6, but have the extended range. There's just, again, it's all preference. And it feels right. Ultimately, it just feels right. Mm-hmm. That's where it ends up. And something that is going to show up in the future. There's a new American Ink single that's not out yet that we're recording. It's taking an old hymnal and making it metal, mm-hmm. and putting it on the extended range. And it becomes a lot easier to transpose that stuff to metal when you have the extended range because you have B, C, and D, mm-hmm. and those are really common chords in hymnals. So when I would normally be playing like strummy chords, the hymnal I'm talking about is called Son of God Goes Forth to War, but it normally has strummy chords, and we changed it to having like heavy, and it's because of the 7 we were able to do that. So you can literally follow that pattern in the hymnal on an acoustic and be singing that song, or you could throw it on here and then start screaming over it and making it heavy. And like all of a sudden, I haven't published a lot of this stuff live, but I do intend to. I could probably have an entire album of old like public domain hymnals that are turned into that type of metal. Mm-hmm. It just seems to flow so naturally. Didn't expect that to happen. That's just something that has come about with the 7. Yeah. So there's a lot of places to go and a lot of diversity of sound you can get out of it essentially. Mm-hmm. And again, I just like it.
Well, thank you, Jarrod, for show your guitars. I'm really enjoyed the moment when you guys play your guitars and talk about them, and it's amazing. It means a lot for me. Well, I want to ask you some tough questions.
All right. I'm ready.
Okay, I hope so. Well, what is your favorite album?
Oh gosh, it changes so often. What is my favorite album right now? Ironically, I don't listen to a lot of music. I do, but like as much as you would think a musician would listen to music, I don't listen to much. what's interesting is I don't have a go-to. That's why it's hard to think about. Like, what is my favorite album? So I think there was a time where I would have said Horror Show by Iced Earth. Then there would have been another time where I would have said like Dead Heart in a Dead World by Nevermore. There's phases that I went through in my life where it would change. There was a time where Blackwater Park by Opeth would have been my favorite. There was a time where Dimo Borger's Puritanical Euphoric Misanthropia would have been my favorite. There's a time where Cruelty and the Beasts by Cradle of Filth was my favorite. Now it's changing so much because I've found there's such a deep well these days in the Christian metal community that I didn't know existed before or didn't actually exist at all before, that I've been discovering so much music over the past few years that it's almost overwhelming and hard to place. But man, I can't remember the name of the album, but Signum Regis has their newest album is fantastic. There's a new Vials of Wrath album that's a Christian black metal album that's really good. There's a band called Symphony of Heaven that's I guess you could almost say like a Monomar style, and like if you took like a Monomarth and Insiferium and like melded them into a Christian metal band, then they sound like that. So it's hard. I'm sorry I'm not giving a direct answer, but you could say from my initial time that there was a time where Injustice for All was my favorite album, because I could say that one ran into the dirt. I played it so much. It just changes, and my taste changed so often that it's hard to. I can think of a time where there was a time I lived in El Paso, Texas, and during that time, an Emperor album called Prometheus came out, and it was where they had a real style change. It was still obviously them, but I couldn't stop listening to that album when it first came out. So, just you can tell almost like why I'm playing so many styles and so many different things. My listening's the same way, where I can't stay still. So, yeah.
Yeah, I just told you it's root questions.
Yeah, it's tough.
Well, and what album do you recommend for guitarists? At least in this album, because the job on that album, on this album, it's really great.
And it depends on the technique they're looking for. Like if you want to know what a good right hand is, Horror Show by Iced Earth. That really captures everything. I think that was the best like snapshot of John Schaefer and Iced Earth's career was that. And so you're really going to fully capture that style there. If you want to learn how to like dissect a guitar into single notes, like if you're going to be doing a dual guitar playing stuff, really anything Soilwork, but like Ride Majestic by Soilwork is really good for that style, because you can learn how you can be extremely melodic, have chords, but really learn when to peel it back and have simple guitars, because there's somebody else in the band too. There's other band members that can shine. Sometimes you're allowed to peel back.
Is that behind the spot?
That was the hardest part for me to learn, and Suffer Not the Witches helped me with that, is learning when to be forward with it and when to peel it back and allow. And Funeral Procession was big on teaching me that too, because the vocals need room, and sometimes if you do too much on a clean vocal part, you get messed up and there's too much going on. You got to learn when to peel away and learn when to shine, and so that seems like a pretty good spread.
Yeah, the music it's like a community, right? And the reason you have different instruments, it's for sometimes shine and sometimes not.
Yeah.
Because it's another instrument like voice, like a brass or the piano, the bass, the drums needs to be shine in something interesting to say, the message.
Yes.
You said the music is the way for give a message, right?
Yes.
And the lyrics the voice, the drums, the piano, whatever. And the music is about that, right? Well, thank you so much for your answers.
It's all off the cuff, so we'll see.
Well, how you balance your life, your job, your family, your kids, like you're a father, you're a husband, you're a employer, and but you're a musician too, right? How you balance all of that?
Musicians aren't going to like this answer, but with discipline and scheduling, have to schedule things. And I know none of us want to schedule it, and like I need to move when I'm feeling moved to do it. I don't want to crimp my art. Like that's true, that's good, but you have to learn how to discipline yourself to be artistic on command, because there's only so many hours in the day. And again, like you said, with marriage, 3 kids, homestead, full-time job, band, you have to figure out when you're going to do that. And sometimes you don't get to choose the best time to do that, so you have to allocate a lot of time, and specific times. It's like, I have an hour to sit down with my guitar and play. I'm either going to work on promoting the band, I'm going to work on recording, I'm going to work on learning a song, I'm going to work on a technique, but I can't work on all of it. I have to prioritize. So you have to schedule, you have to prioritize, and you have to discipline yourself to make it happen anyway. And if it doesn't, don't beat yourself up. Try again next time. And eventually, it starts to build, and you start to be able to do that anyway. And then you start developing talents you didn't know you had. Because when you can start calling up your art on command, instead of having to be in the right mood and right mindset or whatever you think you need, you can do it. It's there. If you can call it up under those circumstances, you can call it up at any time. You just need to learn how to do that. So, it's, again, discipline, scheduling, and prioritizing. That's how you have to do it.
Okay, thank you, Jarrod, for your time. I really appreciate your time here on Guitar Memories, for share your love, your passion, your project with us. It's amazing. And where the people can contact you for a gig or for a listen your music.
If you look up Suffer Not the Witch band, it will pull up everything you need. But you can find Suffer Not the Witch on Linktree. We have an EPK on Bandzoogle. It's suffernotthewitch.bandzoogle.com. But we're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm used to talking in bands, you can tell. On all of the major social medias. What are they? TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. I don't know. We're on all of them. YouTube. We've got some live videos and some behind the scenes of the EP recording on there. And as music videos come out, they'll be on there too. And we do have an EP. I keep saying we. Suffer Not the Witch has an EP coming out. It's done recording. It's in the mixing and mastering process now, so it'll be early this year that it'll be out.
Well, I'm excited to hear all the EP. Well, before end, do you have an advice for the new guitarist?
Yeah, I'll go back to something I said earlier, is don't be afraid of music theory. Don't be afraid to be taught. It's okay to be self-taught, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a fine approach, but don't be afraid or intentionally turn your face from an opportunity that's given to you to learn and be taught by somebody. Whether it's a legitimate teacher or like in a class where you're paying for lessons, or whether it's your peers in other bands, everybody has something to teach you. And I've learned more, and I can say this to kind of piggyback off of that statement. I've learned more guitar from other guitarists by being in bands with them. Gary in American Ink, we learned guitar together. Me, him, and Brian on bass, and me and Gary on guitar at like 13 or 14 years old. And being in a band with him, he's an insane virtuoso. He can play all kinds of solos. But I learned just by being around him and us playing guitar together. Nakoa has taught me so much just by being around him and playing guitar with him. New techniques, different ways, different mindsets, different ways to compose. So I would say even just try to get into a band. No matter how successful you think it can or you want it to be, really starting off, get into a band. Just for that fellowship, that camaraderie, and what other people can teach you. Iron sharpens iron. We will always learn so much from each other instead of sitting alone in the room. That's a great place to practice. That's a great place to sharpen the skills you have. But real development can happen when you're in a room with someone else. So don't forsake that.
Well, thank you, Jarrod, for everything. And I really appreciate your time, and I hope you enjoyed this interview.
I love this. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your guitars, and I hope see you soon on the stage, and share more time with you and talking about guitars and music, and you know.
That's awesome. I really appreciate this. This means more than I can properly express that you had me on here. So thank you.
Well, yeah. Well, guys, that's it today. Thank you for being here on Guitar Memories. Thank you, Jarrod. Again. Well, and I see you guys on the next episode with another amazing guitarist. My name is Julio Diaz, Jarrod Butler, and keep playing. See ya.